So it looks like Hasbro might be getting ready for a Power Rangers cinematic universe. So, recently, news came out that not only is Hasbro going to be releasing a new Power Rangers film, they're also going to be doing a TV show connected to that film. So, as stated here on comicbook.com, Hasbro has been developing a Power Rangers feature film reboot, but that's not the only change in store for the famous franchise. Jonathan Entwistle has been tapped to direct the upcoming movie Reboot, which will hopefully launch a new franchise during the Hasbro era. But a new report by THR reveals that the creator will also oversee and direct both film and television adaptations for the series moving forward, which is a huge shift for the franchise. Those not familiar with Power Rangers, it is a adaptation of Super Sentai, a Japanese series where they take a majority of the source material, particularly anything to do with the fights, both in suit and then also the giant robots fighting the giant monsters, that stuff, and then they will add their own scenes to it, so that it works all well together. So it seems seamless. But this is an entirely different direction for them. So as the president of E1's film said, Nick Meyer says, Jonathan has an incredible creative vision for this iconic and hugely successful franchise, and is hands down the right architect to join us as we reimagine the television and film worlds of this property. And also, Michael Lombardo, who was also in the joint statement, said that across our slate, we are looking forward to working with the most talented storytellers as we take on Hasbro's rich fan-favorite brands and build entertainment universes around them. So it seems like Power Rangers isn't the only one that they're looking for. Could also be other properties that Hasbro currently has the rights to, but so far they've announced that Power Rangers is the one they're going to start with a film and then have a connecting TV show with it. Entwistle himself says, this is an unbelievable opportunity to deliver new Power Rangers to both new and existing generations of awaiting and adoring fans. We'll bring the spirit of analog into the future, harnessing the action and storytelling that made this brand a success. The article ends with, recent iterations of the show have taken on some elements from the comics, but never directly connected. As for the recent Reboot, which was the film I think in 2016, 2017, it was well liked by fans, but failed to deliver the franchise starter Lionsgate and Hasbro had hoped for at the box office, and so a sequel never happened. So my thoughts on this, the whole recent film, I didn't like it. For something that's supposed to be based around a team, Power Rangers isn't just one or two people, it's an entire team. 5 people, the majority of the time, then usually they'll add a 6. But for that film, they started with the original 5, based off Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the series that started everything for Power Rangers. That film, it only ever really focused on 2 characters, Jason and Billy. All the other characters were just kind of there, in my opinion. And it got rid of some of the most iconic parts of Power Rangers. The 2 most iconic stuff are the actual morphing sequence, it's morphin time, all that, Instead, they just had them stand on a podium and the suit materializes over them. And then also, the other one, the Zords becoming the Megazords, the 5 robots turning into one giant robot, connecting with each other to make one giant robot. Instead, we only get faint glimpses because they've all fallen underground into magma or lava, and you just see like bits and pieces. It looks like it's connecting, and then all of a sudden it rises up and it's already the Megazord. It's just like, and it didn't even look like 5 robots that combined together. It just looked like 5 robots that were melted into a puddle, and then that puddle was laid out in a model of a blank model of a giant robot, and then that was it. It didn't really feel like 5 giant robots combined together to make one bigger robot. So, and the film overall was it wasn't terrible, but I can see why it didn't get a sequel, and honestly I wouldn't have wanted a sequel out of this. This whole statement here by Entwistle saying that it's an unbelievable opportunity to deliver new Power Rangers to both new and existing generations of awaiting and adoring fans. we've honestly we've already had a lot of media that does this. I would say the comics, even though the comics are primarily catered to um, long-time fans, particularly with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, I would say they probably got more fans from that because now there's a different uh, the range for it is expanded into comic books as well. I know there's been Mighty Morphin Power Ranger comics beforehand, but I think the Kyle Higgins run that started everything. It made it bigger, expanding the fan base. Then you also have Shout Factory also expanding the range to Super Sentai. They're releasing the official English subtitles as Super Sentai. So you want to see where it all came from. You want to see where it all started, like where this all started without Super Sentai. You wouldn't have Power Rangers. Here's this. So I don't know. I'm not sure what take is End Whistle's going to have. That it's going to be for both new and existing fans. I guarantee it's going to be another take on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I know there was rumors before saying it had something to do with time travel, so I believe it's definitely going to be Mighty Morphin Power Rangers because they can't. Despite the fact Power Rangers has 20 plus years of history, there have been other teams aside from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but no, they just want to go for the nostalgia box and just go with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That's why the reboot film was based off Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That's why the comic is based off Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and it still is to this day, despite the fact they've also introduced other teams with their Shattered Grid crossovers. Like, no, we have to, this is where the money's at. Unfortunately, as much as I hate the fact it's just Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, a huge just wank fest with that, especially with Tommy. That's where they get their most money from, unfortunately. I would rather see like adaptations of like other teams in either comics or this film reboot or anything, because let's be honest, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is a product of its time. It doesn't particularly aged well. It is incredibly cheesy. But there have been shows, there have been teams, there have been Rangers that have been so much better than that original cast. Time Force has an incredible cast. Wes is probably one of the greatest Red Rangers. Eric is probably one of the greatest Sixth Rangers. And they're both in the same season. A lot of like post-Turbo had some of the best Power Rangers seasons. I mean, In Space saved the franchise. Lost Galaxy, Lightspeed Rescue, Time Force, Wild Force. A lot of the Disney stuff, some may not have liked it, but there was still some great seasons in there. Dino Thunder, SPD, all of that. Neo Saban. Oh, we don't talk about Neo Saban, except for maybe Dino Charge, but that's it. But Hasbro really kind of brought it back with Beast Morphers, but I guarantee this is going to be another Mighty Morphin Power Rangers adaptation. I also saw somewhere in the grapevine they're saying that it's going to be not for kids. It's going to be slightly older, maybe young adult, considering Entwistle is known for the Netflix series End of the Fucking World, and I'm Not Okay With This, which are primarily for much older audiences, young adult onwards, so I'm guessing that's the take they're going to do. That's going to be for a slightly much mature audience. But I would say, like, Power Rangers is typically for everyone, even though it is the target audience is kids. It is a family show. Anyone can enjoy it. I still enjoy Power Rangers. I've been really liking Beast Morphers. And I'm 25 years old. I'm definitely not in the target demographic for Beast Morphers. But it is same with Super Sentai. It's for everyone. So hopefully it's not going to be like we're going to get dark. Now remember that like fan trailer was just like it was a dark version of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, like more mature, more adult. I'm hoping that's not the direction they take, because there are only some times when someone can take a franchise which is usually family friendly, or the target audience is definitely younger than adults, and then make it dark and gritty but make that work. I would say Kamen Rider Amazons was actually a good example of taking an existing franchise and making it dark and gritty, and that worked extremely well in that case. It's very fitting, even though I don't like when franchises do this, when people do this. Just take something, make it dark and grittier. The DCEU did it with like Superman. I don't like. Superman's not supposed to be moping. It's not supposed to be dark and brooding. That's Batman. That fits Batman. Doesn't fit Superman. It's supposed to be the future, the hope of everyone, the light in the darkness. But for Amazons, it worked really well because all it did was just take the name. It just took the name Amazon, and it just went with its entirely original story. It didn't try to remake it. It didn't try to take the plot of Amazon and then just make a 21st century spin on it. It just did its entirely separate own thing, and that's how it worked. Okay, here, in this part, recent iterations of the show have taken on some elements from the comics, but never directly connected. I don't know what they mean, aside from maybe high school setting, unless they're referring to like Neo Saban. So like Megaforce, Super Megaforce, they were high schoolers. You know, it says a homage to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, or the fact if they're referencing like most recent years in the comics, you had Shattered Grid, so the whole multiverse, their own multiverse kind of story. Evil Tommy, Lord Dracon from a different world, attacking different all the different Power Rangers, which have all been split into their own world. So now that there's like a Power Rangers multiverse, unless that's what they're talking about, I don't see what elements they've taken from the comic, unless it's talking about just a revitalizing or a spin or an expansion of an existing story, because that's what the comics have done. When the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger comic first started, it was it continued off from Green with Evil, which introduced Tommy as the Green Ranger, and then at the end him becoming the 6th Ranger for their team. That's where it started off. Maybe that extra stories that weren't shown in the shows themselves, who knows. And then also, this kind of ties into the whole... There was a rumor going around that Hasbro were not going to be using any Sentai footage anymore for a Power Rangers series. Which would have been a pretty big risk, because every show, every Power Rangers show, whether it was Saban, Neo Saban, Disney, Hasbro, have still always used Sentai footage. But if I'm guessing this is what that rumor turned out to be. They're just making their own property, not using any footage, just make their own things, similar to the reboot, the reboot film. We'll have to see how it goes. I don't think Hasbro's gone wrong so far with Power Rangers. I really liked Beast Morphers, but I've yet to finish that, so I don't have a full-on opinion on Beast Morphers so far. Their next series is Dino Fury. It's another dinosaur team. I'm like, not another one, and they're... we'll have to wait and see what Dino Fury is like, because there haven't been a lot of like details about that. But this whole film and then a connecting TV show, I don't know. I think they're a bit too ambitious. There's nothing wrong with planning ahead with like, if this is good, if this is successful, we can expand upon it. And if there's a huge a huge following, whatever from the film, we can get them over to the TV show. This isn't even out. Like, we don't even know anything about this film, and they're already saying we're going to have a TV show connecting to it. It's like, can you just focus on the film first? Okay, show us what you've got, and wait for how we all react before going into a film. Because the Batman is doing this, the Matt Reeves one, film's not even out yet. And yes, that's because there's been a lot of complications, particularly with COVID having delayed it. But the film hasn't even come out, and they're already saying there's going to be a Gotham PD TV show connected to it already. It's... hold your horses. Like, everyone wants this. Everyone wants what the MCU has done. They want this connected universe that everyone enjoys, everyone takes part in. It does seem like it. Even though it's only two things, it's a movie and a TV show, it does feel like everyone wants to get onto the bandwagon that Disney started. And we've seen that before, and we've seen it failed. Anyone remember Dark Universe? Yeah, that popular franchise that wanted to reimagine the movie monsters. You know, it started with The Mummy, which was terrible. If you want to watch The Mummy, just watch the Brendan Fraser version. It's great. But yeah, that their attempt at doing that wasn't successful, because from the get-go, all they cared about was making a new cinematic universe that rivaled Marvel. They didn't care about just making a film and then just making other films that just happen to connect, and then they decide it's a cinematic universe, a dark universe. That's it. But even then, the film by itself was bad. So even if they didn't try to overtly connect it to this whole cinematic universe, I don't think anyone would have wanted more. But that's it for the video. Thank you all for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. You can follow me on Twitch, and I will see you all in the next one.